Then I'm now beginning. Welcome to today's webinar. Very nice to see that the audio is also okay as far as Texas. So this webinar today is about views in MemoQ, what they are. I'm going to cover how they work. I'm going to show you a few common or frequent scenarios in which you can take advantage of views. I will also be spending quite some time on how views and the various bilingual formats are related in MemoQ, because that really gives the workflow aspect of views and how you can use a view to split up work, send it on for various other players, translators, or reviewers, and then combine it back in your original project. And finally, I will also be taking a look at really more the project manager's aspect of how views are related to online projects, how views and bilingual documents are related to handoff packages and handback packages. And finally, at the end of the webinar, we will have ample times as usual for questions and answers. So if you have any question either during the webinar, then don't hesitate to ask, but there will also be a fairly large time slot at the end where I will be going through questions and answering them. Before I begin, let me ask you two poll questions. I always push the wrong button here, so this is the button that I really wanted to push. Those of you that have attended webinars of mine before probably already know that I never let you guys get away without polls. So the first question is about your experience with CAD tools. As I would expect, the majority of you are CAD tool users. I'm going to share the results here. So the overwhelming majority of you are using a CAD tool for your daily work. And I also have another question, which is specifically about MemoQ, whether or not you have experience using MemoQ. All right, so thank you very much for answering this one too. I'm showing the results. You can see that, again, the overwhelming majority of you have used MemoQ on your own. I hope those of you that haven't used MemoQ will also find this webinar useful, and maybe you will find it worthwhile to try MemoQ after this. All right, so as usual, I will just dive right into the middle. I already, quite unusual for myself, came prepared with the MemoQ project for you. So that is this webinar German to English project. As you can see, it's a regular bilingual project. Could be multilingual, but I just set up a bilingual, it's a single target language. I believe that you are not seeing my screen. I don't know what exactly happened there, but I hope the screen is now visible again. All right. So there's a couple of source documents in here. There's a translation memory in here, which more or less covers the same content as that found in the source documents. And this is where we will be going from. Now, before I actually go and create a kind of view that this webinar is about, let me just open at random one of these documents and take a look inside. Let me turn on preview. So what you can see is a document with nice preview. And what you can do in this grid, and I would assume that the majority of you already know this, already this grid, you can filter and sort on the fly. Probably the one of the most frequent ways of filtering such a document is just selecting text, say in the source, pressing Ctrl-Shift-F, which is the equivalent of pasting text here in this box in between quotes, And this filters my segments. You can see that now they the numbering goes 1, 2, 22, 93. And this gives me only segments that contain the text that I entered in between quotes in here. In this case insensitive. With no text selected in the grid, pressing Ctrl-Shift again, we'll just drop this filter. So this is how you can filter for text. There's actually a lot more ways to filter. If you click on this button which says Filter Segments by Status, you will have a lot of options coming up. You can choose, well, no filtering, obviously. You can filter for only those segments that contain an error. Well, let's do that. You can see that I only got rows with this red exclamation mark, which in this case means that this required tag is not inserted into the target. You can also drop the filter. You can also sort your document, say, I want to sort by the length of my source text so that the short entries come to the top. You can also do this alphabetically, which is sometimes useful for just getting the segments that only contain a number grouped together up there at the beginning of the document. So you can just copy source to target those and then deal with actual content to translate. So this is what we call on-the-fly filtering, and in the previous design phase we also called this a dynamic filter, a dynamic view, excuse me. And that is also why when the document is either filtered or sorted, you get this letter V in parentheses before its name. That's just to give you an indication already on the tab that this is not the natural order of segments, but either sorted and or filtered. Of course, such a filtered or sorted on-the-fly view is only in effect as long as the document is open. If I close it, I lose it. The next time I open the document, I will get it in the natural order. So this was just sort of to lay the ground for how views excuse me, work. So now I'm going to go on and create a view. Here in the list of translations, you can see that I have two tabs. One is for documents, and this second tab is for views. The views that I'm creating will all show up as different items in this Views tab. So first of all, let's select a couple of documents. I'm selecting all 4 of these, and I'm going to show you the simplest use of using views, and that is just to practically glue documents together. I'm going to click Create View. Let me just enter a name which is glued together, and I'm leaving it at that. By default, the first option that is selected says simply glue documents together, and that is exactly what I want to do now. So if I click OK, MemoQ automatically switched to the View tab, and I see this glued together showing up here. If I double click to open this, I will get a translation grid that looks exactly like I get when I open a document, a regular document. And this translation grid, if you take a look at the bottom, contains 1,555 segments. So that's all the segments, all the rows from all the documents in my project. What you also notice here is that there is no preview for documents. So that is a known limitation, so to say, for views. You will later see that just because 2 segments are next to each other here, it doesn't mean that they actually occur next to each other in the document. They may even be from completely different parts of 2 different documents. That would mean whenever I go to a different row while editing a view, I would possibly also have to swap the whole preview, and we just didn't want to add that sort of complexity to MemoQ. You can also see that a view is not a separate document. It really is a view. You are looking at the same set of segments that you are looking at in the documents. Let me just copy source to target this one and confirm this row. And what I want to show you is that if I now leave the view and go back to a document, namely this one, which is the source of the row that I was working on, the change that I did in the view shows up in the document itself. So it's really just editing the very same segment, but you can access the segment either by opening the document or by opening a view that happens to contain that segment, but you're really working on the same thing. There is another limitation that has to do with views, and that is exactly because of this row-by-row matching of content from translation documents into a view, and that is as long as there is a view in existence based on a translation document, you cannot join or split segments either in the document or in the view. So if I try to join this segment with the, I simply don't get anything, and that is the case as long as this view is in existence. You can very easily drop a view, you just pick the remove command. Again, because this is only a view, if you remove a view, you do not lose any content. The document is still there in your project. So I can now go back to Tricky. The segment is there in the same status as I last left it. And now I'm able to join segments with the following ones. And this is a limitation that was previously induced by a view. All right, so this is the basics of views. Now let's take a look at a couple of frequent uses. I already showed you one, and that is gluing documents together. When you're dealing with content that happens to come in the form of several small files, hundreds or even thousands of small files, which may contain only a few segments each, then the mere effort of opening up a document in order to just translate a couple of segments, then closing it, moving on to the next one, opening the next one up, can already take up a lot of the effort. So instead of working your way through these tiny snippets one by one, it can possibly make a good, it's possibly a good idea to glue them together. Also, if you want to do some bulk operation on all of your documents, then it's sometimes more comfortable to just glue them together and work in the view instead of working individually in the documents. Now you can also do the opposite of that, and that is to split up a single document into several smaller parts. I'm going to do the same with Tricky. So I go to Create View again. I'm going to name this one Part 1, and I'm selecting the option to split documents, and I can enter a row number from 2 here. So the first row is going to be 1. How many rows does this document even have? Let me just type 9,000, a large number here, and if I leave the cell, MemoQ actually brings this number down to the largest row number that actually exists in my document. So now even without opening it, I can know that my document has almost 400 rows. So what I'm just going to do is create one part that contains rows 1 through 200. I go back to the document, again create a view, and now I'm going to create another one that contains rows 201 through, let's enter 400 here. Yep, 394, that was the number. And this I'm going to call Part 2. So now I have 2 views that behave practically in the same way as documents, but they only contain part of my content. Admittedly, this at the moment is a little bit tricky, because first you have to know the row number, so you have to know I want to go from 1 to 200, and the other part of the story is that this is merely by the number of segments. And the distribution of short and long segments within a document is not necessarily even. So may you get a situation where the first half of the document contains one-word segments, so you've got 200 segments which are really shorties, and then you've got the second half of the document which contains the really long ones, much more work to do, but it's also just 200 segments. So that you have to keep in mind when you're splitting up documents by row number but still it gives you the chance to do that. Okay, so this was a second scenario. I'm actually removing these views to just split up a large document into several small parts. And now is the time when the really exciting stuff is beginning. So I'm going to create a view based on all of these documents, and I'm just going to extract all the repetitions so that I can deal with the repetitions up front. And then once having dealt with the repetitions, I just want to deal with the rest. So here's how to extract repetitions. Create view. There's a quick access option for that here, which says extract repetitions. I'm going to call it just reps. And it's interesting to take a look at this checkbox here, which says only one occurrence of each. I'm not checking that for the time being. That gives me this view here. And if I open that, you can actually see that every single row has this green mark next to it, which stands for this row is a repetition. So I've got all the repeating segments. If they happen to occur more than one time, well, as they all do, so at least 2 times, I will get every single occurrence here. This is actually another characteristic of views. You are probably aware, you're probably familiar with MemoQ's auto-propagation function. You can control its behavior in the translation menu, translation and then auto-propagation. By default, it's turned on and MemoQ only propagates forwards. What this does is that if I translate a particular row and confirm it, MemoQ fills in all the other occurrences. Just a quick look at the status bar tells me that now I have 3 confirmed segments. All of these are actually visible on this screen, and MemoQ propagated this one and this one. You can also see this by the green sign turning into a little arrow that tells me whatever I see here was filled in by auto-propagation. And auto-propagation is a kind of function that works only within a single document. Document as in the sense, in the set of segments that you see on your screen at once. So if you happen to have repetitions that occur in different documents, then if you're just translating document A, whereas the other occurrence of your segment is in document B, then when you confirm that row in document A, it will not be propagated into document B. Whereas if you're working in a view, as is the case now, view in this sense counts as a single document. You see all of it in your screen in one go. Then auto-propagation will propagate throughout the project, even into different documents, because this view will contain segments coming from different documents. So this is how to extract repetitions. Remember that checkbox, which was shown when I brought up the Create View dialog, extract repetitions and only one occurrence of each. If I tick that one, then MemoQ will only keep, as it says on the can, one occurrence of every repetition. Then that means if you have a segment occurring 3 times and you confirm it in the view, it will only be confirmed in one of the documents and it will be left empty in the others. However, you actually have to wade through fewer segments while working in the view. And having confirmed all of those translations into translation memory, you can just then use pre-translation to propagate all the other occurrences. So that's the second useful case of extracting repetitions. Let me just drop this view here, and I'm going to show you a third one. But before that, I have a translation memory in this project, as I said in the beginning, which contains a fair number of entries that more or less match the documents that I have in my project right now. So what I'm going to do, say, this is a new set of files, an updated set of files. I translated them before. All of my translations are there in the TM. What do I do first? After calculating statistics, of course, I pre-translate them. So I want to pre-translate all of these, inserting only exact matches. MemoQ goes through all of my files It pre-translates some content, it leaves whatever else did not have an exact match empty. We can verify that by looking into a document. I can see a couple of 101% matches here. There's a lot that's empty in this case actually. Well, now I hit a range which contains a lot of hits, and then another range which did not have a good enough match, so it was left untouched. How do I find all the segments that I need to deal with, which in this case is everything that is not pre-translated? And here again is where views come in handy. So I go back to my list of documents, create a view. I'm going to call it to translate. And let's pick this third option, which says only rows that are not started. So far, it happened to be that whatever did not get pre-translated was left empty. It had the gray background color. So I'm just going for all the rows that are not started. I'm creating the view. And that gives me, in this case, well, a whole lot of segments, 1445. So there were a lot of rows with no exact match. Here I can see with one with a 99% match. And these are the ones that I actually have to deal with in the project. So this was a case when I used segment status as a criterion to create a view. Now, looking back, if you want to do something even more tricky than this, that's also possible. I'm going to show you that, but I will not go into the very, very low-level details here. So if you bring up this Create View dialog, which is now only recently nice and streamlined and contains the most frequently used options, if you want the full story, then you can click Advanced Options. And that brings up this huge dialog, part of which is already familiar to you. This part where it says Filter by Segment Status, and there are 4 tabs. This one we saw when I showed you how to dynamically filter a document on the fly. This is the exact same control, so you can pick a combination of segment statuses. Basically, MemoQ will look through each row, and any row that meets any of the conditions that you tick here will be included in the view. So if you want all segments, you can choose a combination like repetition and not a repetition that pretty much covers everything because there's no third option. The segment statuses in the first row are exclusive, and if you tick everything here, that again will include every single segment in the document. You can enter a minimum frequency. You can tell MemoQ to not only filter rows but also sort them, and you can choose the criterion here just like we did in the document, source text length or target length, etc. So this is a dialog that some people find formidable. I would probably do too if I didn't design it. Other people have actually told me about, oh, I always loved it when I brought it up. It felt like walking into a candy store, and that was very nice to hear. So this is something for a rainy weekend. All of these options are described in the help, of course. And now, I will leave the topic of how to create views and actually talk a little bit about bilingual documents. So you're probably aware that you can import and export every single document that is there in a MemoQ project as a bilingual file. Here's the option for that, Export Bilingual. It brings up a short wizard where you can select the format, the desired bilingual format. It can be either MemoQ's proprietary bilingual format MBD, or a Trados-compatible bilingual doc, an XLIF file, or a 2-column RTF. So this is quite obvious for documents. Now the really nice part comes in that the same is also possible for views. I actually wanted to work on this view, which is called to translate, but let me complicate matters a lot. This turned out to be too big. I don't want to work with 1400 segments. So let me just extract repetitions again. That will give me a smaller view here. and I'm going to extract every repetition with only a single occurrence. Okay, I have this here. I just want to double check how many segments this contains. 1 plus 78 plus 9, that's 88. That's a very nice number of segments for me. And let's export this as a bilingual document. I'm going to walk through almost all of these formats now. So first, export this as a bilingual document with the MBD extension, so MemoQ Bilingual. I'm going to put it on my desktop. MemoQ suggests the name reps_English because this is for the English target language. I'm quite happy with that name. I have a message in the questions box from Fabio that the audio is quite bad and the screen is being logged out. I haven't had that feedback from anyone else. If that seems to be a problem with a lot of you, then please let me know and I will find out what I can do about that. But it may be up to only your connection. And in that case, this webinar is actually being recorded, so you'll be able to download it at the end from our website. Okay, thanks a lot. So I'm getting positive feedbacks there. Okay, so I'm saving this bilingual with my repetitions onto my desktop. I'm closing this project now. And let's assume a scenario where I would be likely to do this. I would probably want to do this as a project manager that is sending out all the repetitions for translation up front before translating the rest of the project. So the project manager, me, now created this bilingual file with all the precious repetitions. And now let me switch roles, and I'm going to be a translator. I'm creating my own project. It can be on a different computer. Translators project, going from English into German, I hope. I hope I didn't get the languages of the previous project wrong. In any case, now I have an empty project, and I can just import this bilingual document into my project. It was a view in the previous project, but in this project, it shows up as a document. If I open it, it has the exact same segments as I saw in the previous project. So I'm very diligently just going to pretend to translate this, which means I'm going to copy source to target and confirm all of the rows. And now I'm going to deliver my work back to my project manager. I'm just going to export this bilingual again. I'm calling it reps translated. And MemoQ puts the bilingual file onto my desktop. So I stop being a translator now. I did mess up the languages. Luckily, it will not make a difference now. And I go back to the project manager's project. And I can just tell MemoQ to import update bilingual. Browse to my file. MemoQ will take a look inside the file and give me this message, which says, this view is part of the project. Do you wish to update it? So this is actually the reason why that single command, import update bilingual, is called just that, import/update. MemoQ takes a look inside the file. There's a unique identifier in every bilingual document. And if MemoQ recognizes that there is either a document or a view in my project which corresponds to this bilingual file, whatever the bilingual file's name might be at the moment, then I can update it. Otherwise, MemoQ will import it and it will show up as a new document. So now let's update my view. You can see that the percentages automatically changed for all of these documents, because by updating the view, I'm actually updating, remember, this is not a separate document, we are talking about the same segments. All the different segments scattered across my different documents got updated through this process. So if I take a look inside email texts, I'm going to see all of the translations that I as a translator entered a few minutes ago show up in this translation document. So this is how views, just as translation documents, can, so to say, travel around the universe in the form of bilingual files. Let's take a look at the other bilingual formats that I have here. So I'm going to bring up the export bilingual command again. What I did was create a MemoQ bilingual document. That's a full fetch feature. So everything that you see in the translation grid is included in an MBD file. The same is true for XLIF. Everything that's included, everything that you see inside MemoQ, all that information, including comments, match rates, etc., that is there in an XLIF file as well. XLIF files are slightly more restrictive in the sense that MBD files do not care about the actual language pair. So this is just what happened. This was by oversight on my part. I set up this project as German to English, whereas I really wanted to set it up as English to German. Through an MBD file, I was able to transport the document into an English to German project. The same would not be possible with XLIF. There, MemoQ would complain about the language is not being right. Let's take a look at Trados bilingual, Trados compatible bilingual document. I'm going to create this. It will show up as _ English doc on my desktop. So this is the one. Let me open this in Word. You may or may not be familiar with this format. This is the format that was used by past versions of Trados, also WordFast. This enabled performing translation in Word. And in case you need to send work to somebody that is not using MemoQ, but using, say, WordFast or Trados, you can send a document like this and also receive a document like this. That is the really neat problem. I'm going to make some edits here. I'm just typing niemand for no one and save the document. And the neat part is there is a way back into MemoQ. If I go back to my project and choose Import Update Bilingual, browse to this Word document, MemoQ will take a look inside, and it recognizes that there is a view to which this document corresponds, and it will update this view. If I go inside the document in my MemoQ project, I can see that all the segments that were changed through the update have now gone to edited, which is this brownish color for a status. So this is a nice way for me to know which are the actual segments that were changed outside MemoQ. And finally, let's take a look at the fourth bilingual format, which is 2-column RTF. I'm going to export this poor view for the umpteenth time as a bilingual document, which is going to be an RTF file on my desktop. Here it is. Taking a look inside in Word, you can see that you've got this, well, allegedly 2-column, multi-column format with a row number, source text, target text. You even get to see the comment that is there in the little bubble next to each row in MemoQ, and also the segment status. Just a little bit about the anatomy of these files. You can see this very unfriendly code here. You don't really need to do anything about that. That is the unique identifier that helps MemoQ recognize when you use import update that this is a specific document that already exists in your project. So MemoQ doesn't care about the name of the file, it'll just care about this here, and it'll be able to match this ugly code to a similar ugly code that is associated with the view in the project. Just as with the bilingual RTF that we were looking at previously, I can also make my edits here. I can change the comment in another row. Let's do that in the first row. I'm typing new comment here. And there's, of course, a way back into MemoQ through import update bilingual. Here MemoQ gives a more detailed report with some extra options. Basically, I want to update the existing document in my project. This can especially be useful if you're dealing with not a single file, but several files at the same time. And MemoQ also gives you a final report, is that taking a look at this file, this RTF file, MemoQ updated this view in my project successfully, and in the process it updated one target segment and one comment. If I open my view, you can see that the comment here is now changed to new comment. You can see that in the tooltip, and this row, which now again became edited, contains my German translation for number. So this is how bilingual files can be used to make content in the form from documents and or views travel around between various MemoQ projects, or even outside MemoQ and then back into MemoQ. And now I'm going to show you a couple of things that are especially probably interesting to those of you who are working with online projects. So just a second. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to publish this project, which I set up locally on a MemoQ server, thereby creating an online project. And to do that, I'm just going to go to Project and Publish Current Project. I'm selecting killgraydoesn'texist.com. That's our test server for MemoQ. Oops, I need to change my login for that. Just a second. Now that I did that, MemoQ prompts me for a login. I'm typing admin. That guy should have sufficient permissions, provided that I can actually type the password. So I'm going to publish this local project with this name, the same name, using desktop documents in the MemoQ server. And because my project contains both documents and also views, I have a choice here whether or not I want to actually publish the documents or the views. And the reason I need to make this choice here is that views are really a thing that only exists in local projects. In a server project in MemoQ, you can only deal with documents. But if I choose publish only views, which is what I'm going to do here, then that means that MemoQ will disregard the documents in my project and add the existing views into this server, into the online project, in the form of documents there. Okay, and here's a question of whether or not I want to also publish the translation memory. In this case, I do not. Some more project options, and I can click Finish, and now MemoQ is uploading the documents and creating an online project. Let's take a look at that. I can go into the project manager view, and I can see that this is the online project that MemoQ created for me. What I'm going to do now is, before going into the manager interface of this project, let me just check out the copy as a translator would to start working in this project. So I choose check out an online project. I'm picking this project to check out. Check out. I'm checking it out as the admin user for the time being, whereby MemoQ creates yet another project which is closely tied with this server project, showing this one document, which is actually based on a view from a previous local project. I can do my work here. I will just make a couple of edits here, just for the sake of demonstration. Let's call this document. Let's call this Ansicht. That's enough of my dog German here. I'm also confirming these segments here. Okay, let's also translate. Languages, Sprache. That's enough of translation. I shouldn't be doing too much of that anyways. And the way online projects work is that when I close it, MemoQ will just prompt me to synchronize it, and thereby my changes are now uploaded to the server and they are stored on the server side. Those of you that have used MemoQ online projects, and this part of my webinar is really aimed at this part of my audience, probably know this very well. This is standard practice. The reason I'm bringing this up is that the twist that I did in this online project is that when I published it, I did not publish the actual documents, but I published a view. Had I published the actual documents, it would have been very straightforward to just open this project for management, as I would normally do, and finally export the document using the export dialog command in its original format. So the original in this case was XML, and had I uploaded the actual documents, I could from this interface export an XML file. But I did not do that. I included a view here. And obviously a view is just an abstraction, a collection of segments. So there's no XML file that you can export from the view. We don't even know what format that view is coming from. And this might seem like a sort of glitch in this nice project management process, because okay, it was so far so good. I was able to upload my local project, publish it on a server, but there's the way out. I have a view in there sitting around. How do I get my XMLs finally exported? And here's, again, where bilingual documents come in very handy. I can export this item here as a bilingual document. I'm going to go for, oops, sorry, I pushed the wrong button. I'm going to go for the MemoQ bilingual format and save this as an MBD on my desktop. So it's going to be reps translated online. Okay. And if I now go back to my original local project, which I published a few minutes ago, that is this one. Based on that ID that I showed you, MemoQ still knows that that poor MBD file that went through all the hassle of being uploaded to a server, put into an online project, translated, synchronized, exported again, MemoQ still knows that that bilingual document corresponds to this view in this project. So I can use import update bilingual, choose my MBD file, which is reps translated online. MemoQ recognizes that this is the same thing as the view in my project, and it updates this view in the local project. If I take a look inside, you can see my dog German in all the segments. There I typed that. And now, having returned to the starting point to my local project, I can actually go to Documents and export the XML files. And also in the related to project management, another option that you have for project management in MemoQ is to create handoff packages, which are just files that you send to a translator. The translator double-clicks them, it sets up a MemoQ project, and then you can return a translation by delivery, which returns another file, which is an MQBack file. I'm not going to show this because this takes a lot of steps, but what I just want to say here is that these packages that travel, if you're using this offline workflow based on handoff and delivery, those are basically zip files that contain XLIF files inside, the same kind of XLIF files that are MemoQ bilingual documents. So you can just open those packages and treat whatever you find in there as MemoQ bilingual files. It's the same thing. It's a very transparent package format. So basically, that's all the ground that I wanted to cover in this webinar. I already saw a couple of questions coming in, so I'll start answering those. And if you have any questions, then really don't hesitate to ask. I will be looking at the questions box. From Anke, thank you very much for the tip about clearing my throat. I will definitely keep that in mind, and I have been drinking in the meantime, just water. So I have a question from Christy. The question came in when I was showing you the two-column RTF format. If we delete rows from this file, I'm going to bring up the file so we know which file we are talking about. That was this one. So if I delete rows from this file, but kept the header of the table, will MemoQ import only those rows? Yes, that's true. So this is a very flexible format. Let me demonstrate that. I'm just typing in this row, and I'm also typing in this row, and I can delete all the interim rows from this table, and I can delete all the other rows that are below from this table. So I've only got this. I really reduced this table now. And indeed, as you asked, I can even use this to update the view in my document. You can see this very, very, very small letter content here. If I zoom in and zoom in and zoom in even more, I think that's about as much I can do. This is actually a same kind of identifier that identifies every single segment. And that's what MemoQ uses to know this segment really corresponds to that particular segment in the document. So what I can do is even now import update bilingual, pick my document, and MemoQ does indeed update the document based on only those 3 rows that were left in the table. If you look at it, you can see all the ABCs that I typed in there. So the short answer, Christy, is yes. Okay, I don't have a lot of other questions coming in yet. Well, I do have another one, but in the meantime, let me... Oops, no, I'm sorry, I was just looking at my poll questions. I'll save that one for later. So the new question is there any way I can reject or accept changes that were made in the RTF column? No. So basically MemoQ takes the RTF file as it is, and if you use update, you can still change your mind at one point, but if you go ahead and tell MemoQ to update your existing document or view in the project, then MemoQ will go ahead and put in whatever it finds in the RTF. So there's no way to accept or reject one by one. There is one thing you can do with these two-column RTF documents, though, which can be really useful. You can edit them even using track changes. So I can delete these words now using track changes and type something else in there. And MemoQ will just ignore track changes. So if you send out a translation for review in the two-column format, for instance, you can ask for that review to be done with track changes on. The track changes will not be you. In Word, you can see what was changed with track changes on. Still in Word, you can reject some of those changes, and then finally you can go on and update these documents, so to say, back into your project, no matter how ugly that sounds. Okay, that's really interesting with the track changes. Jackie says a client asked me that only on Friday. So yes, you can use track changes. I can demonstrate this actually. If I now update this, MemoQ will just basically accept every change, and the final variant will show up in my project. All right. So I must say there's surprisingly few questions here. I'm normally used to a whole lot of questions. I hope the reason is not that I lost most of my audience 20 minutes into this webinar. So in order to get my mind settled at ease, let me ask the final question, which I always ask at the end of webinars, which is how you like this webinar. Please give an honest answer, and if you felt like something was missing or there was too much or too little of something, also feel free to drop us a mail afterwards, and this is very useful information for us so that we know how to tailor future webinars. I have another question from Janet or Janet. Is it possible to have the translation into target sometimes be lowercase and sometimes uppercase? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this question. Thank you very much in the meantime for answering my poll. I'm almost ashamed to say there's an overwhelming majority of you who liked it. Any constructive criticism is always also welcome. So I'm not exactly sure what your question refers to, Janet, to have the translation in a lower uppercase. There is a command in MemoQ, which is a shortcut. I think it's in the Edit menu, the usual Shift F3 shortcut, which you can use to toggle the upper and lower case of a word as you edit in MemoQ. But I'm not sure that is what you are referring to. I have another question. I hope there will be some more tips and tricks that we haven't discovered yet. I'll definitely keep that in mind. I actually do most of the things you pointed out, so not many doubts about it. So that's good to know. I do mostly legal documents. That's from Janet. Sometimes the word is just a word, and sometimes it's a defined term, and it needs initial capital. I think probably what you need here is the Shift F3 shortcut. You can also just apply it to a single word, as I showed you, or you can select multiple words, and you can apply it to the whole selection, and then it will toggle all of the words going through 4 stages, all lowercase, first word uppercase, all words uppercase, and all caps. I hope that answers your question. So the shortcut is Shift F3. You can find the command in the Edit menu. So thank you very much for attending this webinar, and a nice afternoon or evening to you, depending on your time zone. Hope to see you again at the webinar soon. Bye.